Hello and welcome to another edition of the Castro Valley Compass, navigating your week through Castro Valley. My name is Shane Sharkey, I'm your host, and we're getting pretty fancy here. We've got two cameras, so we can make dramatic looks at the other camera. Anyway, we're going to try to improve our process as we continue to do this and evolve, you might say. So anyway, what I'm going to do today is we're going to talk a little bit about the community calendar coming up, and then we're going to spend quite a bit of time, or the majority of our time here, talking about the idea of making Castro Valley a city and incorporating. So we'll get to that in just a minute. But first, for our community calendar, we have got the event that I went to yesterday at the library that already happened, but we'll get back to that in a few minutes here. But that's Re-envisioning Castro Valley. It was quite an eclectic group of people at the library yesterday discussing the cityhood or potential cityhood of Castro Valley. And it was pretty interesting to say the least. And there's a lot to consider, and we'll dive into some of that here in just a few minutes. But something that you should know is tonight at the library, it is Monday, the 18th of August right now. And tonight at the library at 6 p.m., there's going to be another meeting about incorporation. So if it's not yet Monday night, it might be after Monday, but by the time you see this, but if it's still before Monday night at 6 o'clock, you might want to go to the library and check it out. Pretty interesting discussion about cityhood for Castro Valley. Coming up on August 24th, that's next Saturday, we have the Cruise Night, Castro Valley Cruise Night. That's going to be a lot of fun. Starts at 6 p.m. It's downtown Castro Valley, all along the boulevard there. A lot of fun if you haven't been out to the cruise nights yet, but there's tons of people out there. It's usually a really good time, lots of music and tons of really cool cars. So if you are inclined to want to check out some cars, definitely don't miss the Castro Valley Cruise Night coming up next Saturday, August 24th at 6 p.m., 6 to 10 p.m. on the boulevard. And then also Saturday the 24th, there's a film festival at the Chabot Theater. It's called the Timeless Film Festival. Timeless? I don't know if there's a typo here, but anyhow, it's from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. all day long. And let's see, this event will feature designated networking times, which provides a unique opportunity for filmmakers and film enthusiasts to connect and collaborate with like-minded individuals in our vibrant local filmmaking community. It's $20 to $35 on Eventbrite, and you can go to www.timelessfilmfest.org. So if you're into filmmaking or you are a fan of independent films, definitely recommend you go and check out the Chabot Theater next Saturday, the 24th, all day long. It's at 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. And look at that, you can roll right into the Castro Valley Cruise Night on your way home, because that'll be happening right as the festival is ending. So anyhow, if you are inclined to want to go check out a movie at the Chabot Theater, the #1 movie in the country is playing there right now. It's Alien Romulus. And showtimes, let's see, what are we? Showtimes today are at 4 p.m. and 7 p.m. And then we've also got times Tuesday and Thursday at 1, 4, and 7. Oh, looks like Thursday, 6 p.m. Anyway, I'm sure you can find your local listings, but check out Alien Romulus if you like scary sci-fi. Anyhow, speaking of scary, let's talk about turning Castro Valley into a city. There's a couple of documents I've got here that I think will give us a good introduction to what does that even mean to incorporate and become a city, and why would we even want to do that? Here are some arguments in favor of incorporation. Anyway, we'll get to some other stuff here in a second, but let's go through some bullet points here. Arguments in favor of incorporation would include keeping our tax dollars here rather than sending off to the county. A lot of our tax dollars, I mean, being that we're unincorporated, Alameda County is who controls our budget, and the money that we collect here in sales tax and that kind of thing goes throughout all of Alameda County, spread around. It's not just for Castro Valley. So that's one reason why it might be worth considering incorporating. Let's see, basically keeping our money in Castro Valley. Another reason would be to have a seat at the table. Our supervisor, I'm reading this now, our supervisor is a good guy, but he is only one of 5, and the others have no responsibility for Castro Valley at all. We need someone to stand up for the Castro Valley interests. Another reason for incorporation would be control our future better. Our planning department could stop another burger joint from moving here. Okay, but we need more burger joints, don't we? Let's see. We would get new parks, community space, and infrastructure upgrades. By keeping more of our own money here, we could use it in ways that we want to. And we could brand our community. Our city would allow us to market our community better and to build it in a way that we can all be proud of. We'd be eligible for emergency funds. A gentleman I was talking to last night was mentioning all the money that came from the COVID pandemic, and Hayward got a certain amount of tens of millions of dollars, and Oakland, Hayward, all these cities got a lot of money for the pandemic, and Castro Valley got nothing because we are not a city. So that might be another reason to consider. It would also increase our home values. If we can use our own money to clean up the streets, parks, install sidewalks, the property value goes up. So that's another reason to consider incorporation. And the last bullet point here is to build a new downtown and attract new businesses with our plan. Cities have planning departments that represent our interests, not the whims of the county. The cities around us have a lot of great new development that will improve their environment. We need that too. So those are some arguments in favor of incorporation. Here's a few arguments that are not in favor of incorporation or counter arguments to incorporation. First one is we can't afford it. Our tax base is not adequate for a city. And mind you, this document that I'm reading from is overall positive for incorporation. So here are some responses to the arguments that we should not incorporate. So first of all, the argument that we should not incorporate is we can't afford it. Our tax base is not adequate for a city. And the response for that is the LAFCO survey will answer this objectively. Now, that is somewhere in here, I thought, but let's get back to that in a few minutes here. I want to run through our bullet points. Another reason against incorporation would be it will cause our taxes to go up. And the response to that is yes, but we will get a lot more from those taxes, and we will keep more of our tax dollars in Castro Valley. Right now, they go to the county, and we get very little benefit. So I think that's an important one. Are our taxes going up? Will it cause our taxes to go up? And if so, is that worth it? I mean, it sounds on its face like a bad idea if our taxes go up, but if right now our taxes are not being spent in Castro Valley, it seems a little off balance there. Let's say, I don't know, I don't want to guess anything here, but let's say a small percentage of the totality of sales tax generated in Castro Valley, only a small percentage of that stays in Castro Valley. Would it be worth increasing our taxes a little bit to have 100% of that money staying in Castro Valley? I'm not sure. That's worthy of discussion, I would say. Another reason not to incorporate would be if it ain't broke, don't fix it. We've done well enough without being a city. And the response to that is, really, we haven't. The 21st century has passed us by. I'd be interested to hear more about that, but I think there's definitely some truth to that on some levels. Another argument against incorporation would be, we don't need another layer of government. We have more than enough already. And the response is, actually, we do need another layer of government. We lack an advocate to represent our interests. We are typically left out of decisions and the benefits of government. So there's a lot to talk about there as well. And this is kind of a funny one. The last reason that there's an argument against incorporation is, you just want to be a mayor. And the response is, some people might want to be mayor, but there's no reason to derail the effort. We need someone with a vision who is willing to push the community forward. So anyway, there's a lot to discuss about the idea of becoming a city. And, you know, I'm going to try not to read all of this stuff, but I do want to go over a couple of the things that are being discussed in relation to this process. Incorporating Castro Valley, what won't change? I'm just going to list off some of these. I won't read the full descriptions, but what won't change is public safety, fire services, animal control, or the library. What will change are taxes, state and federal funds, new housing and businesses, building permits, accountable officials. Anyway, I think the biggest one here is what will change is taxes. That seems to be a real big reason why people might not want to incorporate. Let's look into that a little bit here. Taxes. Taxes will change, but not in the way you think. In California, taxes can only be raised by a supermajority vote of 2/3. That stays the same. The change is far more important. It's who can vote on increasing taxes in Castro Valley. Right now, taxes can be raised on the unincorporated areas by a vote of the whole county. People in Livermore, Fremont, Berkeley, and everyone else vote to raise taxes specifically on us. In other words, our votes don't really count. When we incorporate, only citizens in Castro Valley will be allowed to vote on our taxes. So I think that's kind of a big issue as far as the people who are saying that they don't want to incorporate. And the argument would be that, right now it's really not a good representation or allocation of the funds that are being collected in Castro Valley to be spent throughout the entire county. And I think that's probably a good point. Why incorporate? Let's see. Taxes, development, and assistance. Let's look at this assistance for a second. Who can you call for a problem? Sure, you can call code enforcement on public works, but who answers the phone? A problem with runoff from a neighbor? Code enforcement says, oh, they have a building permit. You need to call the planning department. The planning department says, oh, that's a code problem. Call code enforcement. A city has a mayor and a council who live here. So I have definitely had some of that as a business owner here in Castro Valley. I've had some issues with dealing with the county, and it's much more difficult than dealing with somebody that's more localized and that represents the exact place where we're trying to do business. So I can see how cutting out some of that sort of ambiguous runaround, it would be helpful. Also, I like sidewalks. I've got 3 kids here in Castro Valley, and after raising 3 kids and walking around our neighborhoods quite a bit over the last 20 years, it's not easy when there's no sidewalks and people are parked up on the curb. And anyway, it's might seem like a silly reason to incorporate, but I think having sidewalks is kind of a cool thing, and we should consider that when we're thinking about this whole big picture. And by the way, I'm not really for or against necessarily. I'm at the beginning stages of looking into this myself, and I've heard about the incorporation process or people trying to incorporate for probably all of the time I've been here. I've lived here in Castro Valley for 23 years, I think it is now. And this has been a constant theme that is still going. So I think for me, I'm digging into it for the first time in a serious way. And it's pretty interesting so far. I think this will be the last thing that I review here in our podcast about incorporation, and this is really just the beginning of it. I'm sure we'll come back and talk about this further, and I've got some guests that I met yesterday that I'd like to have come onto the podcast and continue this discussion. And by the way, if you are against incorporating, I would definitely love to hear from you. I'd like to get a calm, civilized discussion going so we can kind of see, the totality of what's involved here. So really, what are the pros and cons, and can we have a civil discussion about the entire thing here and come up with a solution that we can all agree on, or at least the majority of us can agree on. Anyhow, this is an important topic. I think it's the hidden costs of being unincorporated. So what are we paying right now as an unincorporated part of Alameda County? I'll try to read this quickly. It's not very long, but I think it's important. Whenever the topic of incorporation comes up, the first response often is, they'll raise our taxes. But few people stop to think about the cost of being unincorporated, and it's huge. The cost is in taxes that are not spent here and in services not delivered. Castro Valley pays a lot in property tax, in excess of $30 million a year. If Castro Valley were a city, the state formula is that $15 million would stay here. However, the county's own numbers show that they spend only $12 million a year in Castro Valley. That's $3 million that's lost to Castro Valley every year. The federal government awarded funds to defray the additional costs incurred by cities and counties because of the pandemic. Oh, here we go. Hayward received more than $33 million in funds. San Leandro got over $18 million. Pleasanton got over $8.5 million, and Castro Valley got $0. Cities also receive other funds. In 2022, the California Department of Housing and Community awarded Hayward $46 million to build 57 units of affordable housing. They also just received $30 million for the Hayward Promise neighborhoods. Castro Valley got nothing. Each year, Congressman Swalwell is allowed to request congressional funds for specific projects, i.e. earmarks. Hayward, San Leandro, and Dublin have benefited from these. Castro Valley gets nothing. And Eric Swalwell is right here in Castro Valley. His office is in my old building where the music school moved from when the pandemic shut us down. So it's interesting that a congressman right here in Castro Valley is not taking any kind of action to allocate funds to Castro Valley, or at least not according to this. So anyhow, the conclusion here is it costs a lot to be unincorporated. And I think the big picture is what costs more and what are we ultimately getting from the situation that we're in? Is it worth paying a little more to have a lot more as far as services and funds and organization and our goals, that sort of thing? The discussion that was had yesterday compared Castro Valley to a city like Lafayette. Lafayette incorporated in 1968, I believe is what he mentioned last night at the gathering. And they are just now breaking ground on their city hall. So that's, I think we're talking about 55 years after they incorporated. So it's not like if we incorporate, things are going to change immediately, but it does sound like it will put us on a track to actually grow and be able to keep some of the money that's being generated here in sales tax and that sort of thing in our city or in Castro Valley. So anyhow, it's definitely an interesting discussion, and who knows what's going to happen, but I do think it's something that we should all be a part of if you're interested in the future of Castro Valley. And I would say that the first step would be to go to the meeting tonight at the library. And I forget the speaker's name, but she's going to be speaking about the act of incorporating and becoming a city. And that's again at the Castro Valley Library, Monday evening, August 18th at 6 p.m., 6 to 8, I think it is. So anyhow, hopefully you got something out of that discussion or that monologue. It's the beginning stages of me learning about this process, and I'm definitely interested because I've become quite fond of Castro Valley over the decades that I've been here, raised 3 kids here, and have 2 businesses here, and I would definitely like to see Castro Valley thrive as we move into the future. So anyhow, thank you for watching the Castro Valley Compass, and I forgot to do my dramatic stares at the second camera. Oh, there we go. I'll try to get better at that. But anyhow, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time on the Castro Valley Compass. Bye-bye.